So 2 horizontal lines and 2 vertical lines. That's what you want to talk about, think about. And your main point of interest needs to be where those red circles are on this diagram. So for example, if you're taking a headshot of people, your point of interest will generally be along the upper line there, going horizontally across, and their eyes or nose around where those 2 red circles are, so set to one side. You can break these, but this is a general guide. For those of you taking pictures of your property, inside property, some of you said that, you need to think about, for instance, where the, I don't know, where the line of the kitchen is, where the line of the glazing is, and so on, and positioning the point of interest on that upper third or the lower third going across. Okay, but this is a general rule, but that's why that grid is there when you take a photograph. Now, these rules can be broken, and you can actually center things, off-center things, and create leading lines. There's a huge amount on this, okay. But I'm just going to show you an example of this. So this is just off Pinterest, and you can see all those brides there, just a screen grab. If you think about their eyes and their face, on virtually all of these photos, they are on or above, just above or just below, dividing those pictures into third. They may be just above, just below, but you get the idea. Virtually all of these photographs are using rule of thirds. The third one in from the top is actually using the rule of thirds, both vertically and horizontally. The face is roughly, well, it's the shoulders, but the face shoulders is roughly around where the rule of third is, and that's where the point of interest is. The 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, the bride holding a bunch of flowers, very similar as well. Okay, so that's brides. If we move on to something like brides and grooms, we're going along a similar line. None of these photos, apart from a few, have the bride and groom halfway down the picture, okay? The vast majority of them are in that or on that upper third. Particularly the first one, you've got the bride's face just below the third and his face just on the third. So the third runs a sort of horizontally between them and in the center of the photo. They're using the third, okay? If we move on to groups in a wedding, all of these groups, they may be arcing down and up and so on, but again, the faces and so on, again, using the rule of thirds where people are grouped. Okay, even in the disco at night, not all of them, but basically the photographers are positioning a lot of those faces along the upper horizontal line, the one with the bride and groom dancing with the confetti, which is 4th row down, second in. That is on the rule of thirds, more or less, okay? And so this is a familiar way of framing a photograph. This is one of mine. He was the fastest under 18s athlete for Team GB, Delano Williams. He's setting off there. It was a promo shoot for a company. And basically, I cropped out the background, things like that. But basically, his head and body are on the upper third, for example. I'm just going to show you a few more. This is, again, a recent shoot I did for a client down in Docklands. She's on the rule of thirds. There's Docklands behind her. Her face is both on the vertical and the horizontal. Think about this when you're framing your portraiture shots and so on. A singer-songwriter, rapper, hip-hop artist, sorry, not rapper, Hattie Keane. And basically, again, she's to the third. Face is just above, but again, it's using more or less the rule of thirds. Hattie Keane, again, she's in the center this time, face around the top third. This was for an album cover. And this is just something completely different I did, where we're going diagonally across, but the chair is in the left third and the hands, which wanted to be the point in prayer, are on the bottom third, both vertically and horizontally. Okay, even when you do shots in a field, this is quite interesting where I'm starting to break it. The point of interest is the plough with the movement, but I wanted to highlight the name, espresso, whatever, and model, and Kuhn. That is a bit of it, and that bulk of the thing being towed by the tractor in the seeding of a field is on the rule of thirds, more or less. This is at Gamescom, HP Omen. I've centered it. I've broken the rule of thirds. And this is for those of you taking photographs, kitchens, bathrooms, glazing, whatever. I've actually changed that as well. And then here we are, Mobile World Congress. I've just centered the spaceman suit on the line of thirds. Lewis Hamilton's car, that's a bit small. And then basically, that's all on the rule of thirds. Another one, this AI, the robot, is actually on the left on the rule of thirds. Okay. So I hope that helps regarding framing and so on. Any questions on that sort of thing? Everybody's very quiet. Very, very quiet. Any questions? Or comments? No. Okay, we'll move on. Okay, right. You use a smartphone. With a smartphone, it's very important that you learn how to use a focal point. You may know this, but you will end up with incorrect photos. So this is just a very, very simple photo out of a plane flying off to Spain. I didn't press anything on the smartphone through the window. The smartphone has picked up, because there's enough of it, all the scratches on the window. When you take a picture with a smartphone, press on the smartphone where you want your focal point to be, because that is where your smartphone will focus. If you do that, you end up with a different image. So this is just, you end up with that. And you end up with an image looking through the glass, looking through the scratches. There's still blur on the lens. If I was working on this for a picture, on the window, I would work on this and so on. But basically, that has completely changed the image from taking the scratches in the glass to taking the picture actually out of the window. Okay. So when you're doing that, then just start thinking about where you want the focal point to be, and don't forget to press on your smartphone where you want it to be. Another thing with smartphone, I was at Beaconscott Model Village the other day with family, and I took a couple of shots to show you something about that. Can anybody say what might be wrong with that shot, or not wrong, but what might be more pleasing if I changed that shot? Anybody, any ideas?
If the figures were in focus?
Yeah, that's one thing. They're slightly out of focus. Yeah, we'll come on to that in a second.
Less reflection?
Less reflection, that's a taste thing, but you could do that. You are moving on to the right because your eye is drawn to that reflection at the bottom, the light part. So I'd agree with that as well. There's something else as well.
I'd probably have got rid of those lilies.
Correct, in the editing, or when you're taking the shot, I agree with you. The lilies are extremely distracting. So what I did was, I did that. I literally just moved it. I've got rid of most of the lilies, and I've got the end of the pier. I haven't cut it off. Yeah. And so that just made, and it's not slightest as tilted as well. So therefore, I've done something on that photo just by taking a shot, looking at the photo, and I've literally moved the smartphone about an inch and a half, and I've got the end of the pier. That then also cuts out the lilies. It cuts out a lot of the reflection, and that isn't as distracting now to the actual pier and bandstand. Okay, Does that make sense?
Mm.
Just by moving it one bit. I'm not necessarily using the entire rule of thirds here, but the actual, what I would have done if I'd have thought about it more, but I had grandchildren with me, I was trying to do this for this and look after grandchildren, and my wife frowning at me, are you here to take photos or look after grandchildren? And basically I had to stop at this point, and I would have actually moved it up to bring the pier further down in the photo. Yeah. And that's what I've done with that photo. So that's really about taking photographs and some ideas as to how to take photos. Now then, that pier shot, what I'm going to do now is just play a video. Now, these are pre-recorded. Okay, so this is something called Luminar. Okay. So I've got the shot in this software called Luminar by Skylum Software. Okay, and there it is. I've just opened it and dragged it in. There are lots of things you can do on this. So light, you can see, I'm just going to show you here with some sliders. You can move the light around there in the picture according to how you want. But for me, it's slightly blown the pier, and that will become apparent. Okay. You've then got other things that you can just adjust here as well, and we haven't got time to go into it now, but you've got something called structure I'm doing now, and the structure brings out emphasis of lines and things like that. You can't use it too much, otherwise you get a white ghostly shadow around called ghosts, artifacts, sorry. Okay, now this software uses AI, and AI is really, really important. So that's using light there. And now we're using more of the structure here. And this just brings out, you may not be able to see it on the screen, I apologize for that, but that brings out, somebody said about the figures a bit more in focus. That will actually bring slight more definition. And you can see there as I move the sliders, now we're on to color, saturation. Okay, and then this one down here, I think it is, yeah, that's details enhancer. Where's the foliage? Dehaze, golden hour. Golden hour is that time of the golden sun setting, and here's a foliage enhancer here. You can see if you move it, you can make it really green or whatever, but I don't do extremes. I just wanted to enhance that just slightly, and you can change the hue of the picture and making it just slightly warmer there, a bit more autumnal, and bring out the green. That also reduces the glare of the reflection slightly, okay? And then here, you remember the old Victorian vignetting. What I like to do is take it the other way. So you've just got, you can see there, just a bit of shadow in the corners, and that again subconsciously draws your eye into the picture as well. Okay, you've got other things you can do here as well. Matte look, you can make it dramatic looks. There is so much here that you don't actually need Photoshop. Luminar will do the majority of what you want. What you can also do in Luminar as well, there's a brilliant thing for those doing landscapes or buildings with landscapes. Sky replacement is brilliant. Sky augmentation is brilliant. You can do lots of things there. The matte look there, do you remember matte prints and glossy prints? You can do that. Mystical is just something they've thrown in there. I hardly ever use that one. Color styles, you've then got all of these basic things here that you can just change the color style. You can design your own as well, your own presets. And I think this is about £60, basically. Okay, and so there's lots you can do in this. That's a texture overlay, so you can have a leather texture. This is focal, you know, the soft focus. You can make scenes misty, dreamy, whatever. Film grain, you can actually bring in noise for those hard, gritty street things as well, and fog. You can bring fog in. Now, the masks, what you can do as well with masks, you can just bring the fog in across part of the picture and things like that. There isn't time to tell you all of this and show you all of this, and this is pre-recording because of speed of computers and so on. But what I'm doing now is, Paul mentioned the lily. I've clicked on erase. I just paint over that lily. I click erase, there it's gone. There are now lots and lots of, you probably won't be able to see them, little white specks in the water here, which are showing up against the green. You literally click erase again. You can vary the size of the brush as well on erase. You can mask things, you can brush things in, brush things out. This is the basics of Photoshop and Lightroom and so on. I'm just clicking on all the dots here. I'll show you on a portrait in a minute. And some of the white over there stands out against the rock. Just click, click, click. I click on erase again. Here we are. I'm showing you, you can actually change the size of the brush. You can lasso things, draw around things and so on. Click on erase. And this is real time as well. I think it's doing it. Yes, it is. At the top there, you can see it's erasing. Takes a little while. Some of these processes, because it's AI, there we go. All those white dots suddenly disappeared. You can do this on skin tone, etc. You then click done. It's then processing it and it creates what's called a new layer. Okay. And here we are. If I move this slider on all of this software, that's the original. This is the, so that's after. Can you see the difference there? Instead of being a blown out picture, it's actually got some more color and depth to it. Do you see that on the pier, everything? And see that it's not as blown out. And this software costs 60 quid, one off. And I've literally done that in that amount of time. It's taken, I don't know, 2 minutes, minute and a half, something like that. You then have two layers. You can then do what's something called a mask on the one layer. So you could actually, in a landscape, create the greenery on one part of a picture and so on. You then press save. You've then got the picture saved. Okay. You say the quality of the JPEG, 100%, etc. And you can save it wherever you want on your computer. That's what I'm showing there. This is something called Gigapixel by Luminar. You take your photos on the smartphone. The problem with the smartphone is the resolution. It is still low resolution. This is by Topaz, and you can enlarge your pictures. So on that side there, the right is a preview of it, and that's on the left. And so what we're now going to do is we're going to increase this size. So you may want to have this for media. At the moment, this is what's called 4,000 pixels wide. I'm going to increase it to 2 times. So there's 2 times, 4 times, so on. So I'm going to suppress what's called the noise, which is a grain in the picture. I'm going to click save. You can do it by specific width, specific height as well. Just do the width, just do the height and so on. And then you click save. You do need to go and make a cup of coffee or have a long drink when you press save. I've sped it up. And there you can see that it's going to be 8,000 by 6,000 pixels, which is quite a large picture. You save it to wherever you want, and basically then go save. Okay. It will then save it. As I say, this takes quite a while. I have sped this sequence up. And this is called Topaz Gigapixel. It is absolutely brilliant. There are 2 main software houses I'm showing here. One is called Skylum, and the other is called Topaz. Topaz. So this will, and this is using AI. The thing about Adobe is, and I wrote a blog on this for a company, some clients of mine, is that Adobe has AI, but it's just re-churning out the exact same software with enhanced AI. They are not, and also to do anything in Adobe Photoshop, You have to really have an eidetic memory. Then what I do, especially with smartphone, is I then take things into something called Skylum Creative Kit Noiseless. Creative Kit is a suite of software, which is the same software house as Luminar. And noise on a camera is like those old black and white photos with grain in there. There's a lot of noise. You've got some presets over here: moderate, light, moderate, medium, intense, strong, strongest, extreme. If you do it on people, it can make them look a bit like a Ken and Barbie doll. But here, I'm just going to do moderate. And we've, again, all of this software has this line down the middle you can introduce, which shows you the before and after, that line there. You can't quite see it, but I can see it on my screen. The difference is here and here. You may not be able to see it clearly enough. You'll have to trust me on this, but you'll see it more in a later clip that I'm going to show you. And you move that along, then it goes across the top. Again, this is real time. And it redraws all the pixels to bring noiseless into it. Particularly if you're doing buildings, so the double glazing, the buildings people, and people like that, noiseless is a fantastic tool. So I've shown you there. Luminar by Skylum, Topaz Sharpen, Topaz Gigapixel, and Skylum Creative Kit Noiseless. 4 pieces of software, which are all using AI. This software costs anywhere between 45 and 90 pounds or dollars, I think it is. If you get the whole lot, that's quite a bit of money, but you don't need the whole lot. They are some of the main ones that I use almost every day. And I would say that only about 10% of my photography ever touches Photoshop these days. 80 to 90% of my photography, I start in something called Lightroom by Adobe. Then I move it into other pieces of software for the finished product. And with all of that software, you can do what's called batch processing. So in Luminar, you can go on the shot of the pier, the shot of your double glazing, shot of your building, the shot of your landscapes, whatever it is, the shot of your headshots. You can go adjust on one and then go, let's make all of these, apply all of these settings and changes to all of them at once. You don't need to do it one by one by one. Noiseless, you can go and have tea and process 100 photos and just do it and set it going. It does it. Okay. Any questions about that software so far? You're a very compliant bunch.
Why do you need all this stuff when I do 95% of my stuff in Lightroom and then just whip out into Photoshop for the other 5%?
Yeah, it depends what you're shooting. That's a really, really good question. Not everything hits it. But for example, I was doing a product shot in my office the other day, and I was using an ISO or if I'm doing, for instance, events photography at Gamescom, Mobile World, events like that, Microsoft, all the overhead lights are out. I am shooting at ISO, some of my boxing photos, I'm shooting ISO 4 to 8000. So I'm getting so much grain.
Yeah.
When I'm doing buildings and so on, I'm taking them into noiseless. I'm taking them into things like that in order to actually get away from that grain. And then I was doing a building for Sony Hawkeye, a build, and I was doing a time-lapse video and photography of the build in Basingstoke. And they have builder's lights for this build within their building. And it's all indoors, but very little other light. I'm shooting at 4,000 or 5,000 ISO. I need to bring back, take away the noise and make it look smooth.
Yeah, I've got a noise reduction add-on for Lightroom, which I find works fine.
You can use.
Which one is it? It might be the Topaz one.
Yeah, noise reduction. They do also do noiseless in Topaz. They do an add-on for Lightroom. Lightroom has improved, but I've used Topaz, I've used Lightroom, I've used noiseless from Skylum. Of the 3, Skylum Creative Kit is the best. It produces the best results that I've used. I find that Lightroom isn't good. It's better than it was, but it's still not good enough for some of the stuff I'm shooting. So that's why I've chosen that. That's why I bought them all, to try them all. I wouldn't recommend you buy them all, but any of you, but you know, I've tried them all, and Skylum is the best that there is. And it really does a really, really good job. Gigapixel, there's nothing in Adobe that really does that unless you got Photoshop. You can do it there, but it's a complex process. With Gigapixel, it's just a slider. You know, it's just ease of use. You don't need to pay for Photoshop every month. You just literally go in Gigapixel, do it, bang, done.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just a lot easier than Photoshop. Does that answer the question why, Paul?
Yeah, it does. What I find is that the fact is you're ending up with lots of different user interfaces, which makes it quite, you know, because I use ON1, I use Capture One, I use all sorts of other stuff, various things.
Yeah.
I keep going back to Lightroom because it's such a simple user interface. It does nearly everything I want to do.
I agree with you. I'd say about 70% of my photography is through Lightroom. And then it doesn't touch anything else. But for those occasions when I do need to touch something else up, Lightroom doesn't do it. And also for other folk here, I wouldn't recommend that you get Photoshop, Lightroom, and your monthly subscription. You can do virtually everything that I'm doing in the software I'm showing you, like Luminar and so on, for a one-off fee rather than a monthly fee. And that's the reason why for this audience as well.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, you do, of course, have to remember that with the buy it once, you buy it until the next release comes out, and you have to buy it again.
Luminar, not necessarily, and the Topaz ones, no, it's a one-off fee, and that's it.
Yeah.
So Luminar, on a major upgrade, yes, but it's still cheaper than a monthly fee. But that's the reason why, A, for this audience, and it's also what I've found to work.
What about Snapseed? I've had a lot of success with Snapseed on phones and tablets. And
I haven't used Snapseed. I must confess that. That's another one to try.
It is. I find it actually if I'm doing stuff on a smartphone or a tablet, I'll generally use Snapseed. As I say, it's a Google product. It's free. Worth a look.
Yeah. What Google did, Google bought up some software called Silver FX Pro and that suite. And basically they bought it up and then they said, we're not going to support it anymore. So the folk went off and who'd written that software and formed a company called Skylum and Luminar.
Yeah.
And they're basically the same people. Google bought the software off them. They then said, we're not supporting it. Google bought out their own software, Snapseed. And then basically the people who designed the other software that Google bought went off and did their own.
Yeah.
Okay, so Penny sent me, I forgot record, I'm sorry, Penny, but I did set it at some point. Right, okay, so what I'm now going to show you now, so Snapseed is another thing for you guys to look at. As I say, it's free, and Paul said it's free. I'm going to show you this video now, and this is a video using Luminar again and Portrait. And this is one reason. So here's a headshot of a guy, just standard headshot in my studio, quite reasonable. But this is what you can do in Luminar. And you go into the portrait enhancer here. And this is the best I've ever used, to be honest with you. So you go skin enhancer. And you can see, just there, skin it, click that button there, switch it on. And you can go here. And you may not be able to see all of it, but basically that does lots of, now this is the one, shine. You can see there that it takes away that excess shine on his face there. And there's the original and so on. And just move it slightly. You've taken away some of the extra shine. In Photoshop and so on, and in Lightroom you can do this, but again for this audience, if you've got Luminar, you can do this. You've then got other things, you can bring in light, you can take out red eye. If your flash has gone off, taking a shot of something or someone. Eye Whitener is brilliant. We used to have to draw around and then later on get the software to select the eye. You have to do that in Lightroom and so on. Eye whitener, you can whiten the eyes as much as you wish. Eye enhancer, you probably won't be able to see this, but it's important when you take a photo, you've got that little dot of light in the eyes where possible. So that's enhanced that. Dark circle removal, somebody's had a bit of a night before, you're taking shots of them. You can slim the face on people. I don't like doing this particularly, but you can really, really slim the face down if you wish to do so. Enlarge the eyes. The eyes are the windows of the soul. You can enlarge the eyes as well, just slightly, just to enhance that, just to bring the people in. Improve eyebrows. You may not be able to see that. That just darken them slightly, okay? And then lips, you can change the saturation of the lips, like that, the tones on the lips. You can redden the lips, bit Danny LaRue style, for those of you who remember him. You can darken the lips as well, extreme, whatever. It's all sliders. And then teeth whitening you've got as well. Okay, so basically you've got that as well, if you wish to do so. You can then make the pictures what's called high key, introduce light and so on, different styles, do whatever you want here. And this is all in Luminar Portrait. So as well as doing all the mask and erase and things like that, and you've got all of the things down the bottom, you've got black and white, you've got color, you've got dramatic, you've got film looks. But here's one of the beauty of it again. We go erase, and we've got a few spots which aren't normally there, and dimples. Maybe he's shaved in the morning. You can't see all of these. Again, just like with the lake and the pier, just taking out a few of those spots. You can do this in Lightroom, as Paul will know, but again, I'm just showing you an alternative to Lightroom. So you wouldn't go into Lightroom and then do this. You either use Lightroom or this. And I find this more accurate than Lightroom actually, on all the spots and dots and so on. We then click erase. You can do it different ways in Photoshop as well, but then we're erasing, and suddenly we have a smoother face, which hasn't got all those spots and dots and so on as well. So if we move this around, there's a before, smoother face, less of the interruptive light, still some light there, eyes enhanced, whitened, lips slightly darkened, and a different picture altogether. And again, done that in what, minute and a half? And then you
Can I just chip in?
Yes, sure.
I think where you've got the slider, it seems that after you've done it, it looks like there's almost like a dimple underneath the right hand side of his lip. I'm not sure.
Right, there may be. This is just a very, very quick demo, okay, and it was literally me click, 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 just to show it for the purpose of this. But yes, you can then do other things with it. Okay, does anybody have any other questions on that at the moment? Anybody want to chip in? Are they normally this quiet, Penny?
How do you manage your
training writing people are often quiet and they sit behind the screen and they don't talk to you, so our trainers find difficult because there's no interaction. And I'm doing exactly the same, sitting here, not interacting, so
Yeah. Zoom can be a bit tiring. But I hope this is useful for people to show you alternatives to Adobe, alternatives to the Photoshop Lightroom, which you can have access to. As Paul says, if you're using Lightroom, use Lightroom. But me personally, if I was not a pro photographer doing it every day, I wouldn't be paying for Adobe Photoshop and Lightroom monthly. I'd be moving down into the route of Luminar and Skylum Creative Kit. They would be my two of choice, would be Luminar and Creative Kit.
To be fair, it's £9.98 a month. It's not a fortune.
No, it isn't. But it can be. Sorry, how much is yours?
£9.98.
Okay, you've just got the two. Okay, yeah.
I've got Lightroom. I've got Lightroom and Photoshop.
That's right. Yeah, I forgot what the up-to-date price was. I pay for the whole suite because I do
That's
use
about
it.
45, 50 quid, isn't it?
Yeah, it's about 48 quid. Yeah, yeah. So therefore, you have to equate the cost of Lightroom and Photoshop is, as Paul said, £10 a month, or alternatively, you can pay a one-off for Luminar.
But what do you manage your images in?
Sorry, what do I?
I mean, what do you use to manage your images? Because I always find, especially sort of, when you've been taking images for a year or so, and you think, well, I knew I've got an image I want to use on the website. Where the hell is it? How do I find it? And that's something I think is very important.
Yes, it is. That's a very valid point. Anybody who's storing up images, make sure on several things. First of all, you have a filing system as though it's a paper filing system, but on your computer. Don't just save the images in images that Apple try and push you towards. Give something a folder name. So I will give a folder a client name of Joe Blogs. I will then give another subfolder within there, a date, and possibly, if you want to know what it is, a name. So I date it with the full date, 19/07/2020, and then the name. Then within that, I'll then have a folder saying something like raw, because I'm shooting what's called raw. We won't go into that, but you could put original. So you put all of your original images in there. Then when you're editing them, you save them as the finished ones. I save them as JPGs, JPEGs, or finished. So you just then have another folder called finished. You then know when you come back to it in a year, 3 years later, it was Joe Blogs. It was in the park. Okay, here's the 16/07/2020 park. I open up that. I then go, oh, there was a really good image. Did I process it? I remember it. I open up the finished. It's not there. I then go to the originals folder, and basically I then go, there it is there. So that's how I store my images. And Paul is dead right. Otherwise, you end up with two things. You either end up not being able to find the damn thing when you need it, or it gets deleted or lost. And the other thing I recommend is backup. Backup, 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 and take backups off-site as well. It's so important. There are cloud backups. Adobe offer cloud. I've got so many clouds, it's untrue. Me personally, what I've come down to now as a commercial enterprise, because I do video as well, I've got a colleague of mine runs a server in Italy. I back up over to there. I've got almost 8 terabytes, including video. So I do need it backed up. Basically, your photographs and so on, if you want to do it locally, the Lacy rugged drives are really good. You can buy a 5 terabyte fast high-speed USB drive, or 2 terabyte. I think it's 1, 2, and 5, something like that. They cost between 90 and 250 quid. And your 5 terabyte will last you, if you're just doing photography, forever. And then for backup locally, if you're using a Mac, use Carbon Copy Clone.
Yeah.
Carbon Copy Clone is the best. Do not use Time Machine. It's shit, okay? It's rubbish. It's awful. And Paul nodded there. Carbon Copy Clone is the best one for Macs. I'm afraid I'm not a PC guy. I don't know what's best for PC.
Yeah, I use Carbon Copy.
Yeah.
I've got about 4 terabytes of images.
Yeah.
They back up from one external drive to another every night.
Yeah, exactly right.
I don't have to worry about it. I had a drive fail.
Yeah.
Actually, it doesn't happen often, but I had a drive fail last week, and I was back and running in 15 minutes.
Exactly. Drives fail.
I did lose half an hour's work. That's as bad as it got.
Yes. And so Paul's dead right. You must back up. And I'd advise you as well to take a copy off-site if you want to do so, just to be sure. And you can rotate them weekly, daily, or monthly, whatever. And so then the least you're going to go back is a week. So if the backup of the originals fails, you've then got another one off site you can bring in, and you've only lost a week or month or whatever. Depends how much you're shooting. But backup is so important.
The way I always explain this is, in the old days, we all used to have a box of photos and documents
Negatives.
if the house caught fire.
Yeah.
Where are my images now?
Yes.
And what if someone comes and steals my computer?
Exactly right.
People don't actually come and steal your box of family photos, but
No,
I do know people who've
yeah.
lost years of work because
Exactly
they haven't got
right.
the backup piece right. But if
Yes,
you work in a corporate, they'll do it for you.
That's right. A colleague of mine, Richard Shermansky, he's photographed King of Jordan, he's photographed Prince William and Diana when they were at Eton and so on. And he happened to be at a wedding, shooting a society wedding, and Kate Middleton was there, the bridesmaid, age 12 or 13. And when she and William got engaged, he was rung up by the News of the World and basically said, we want to run those in. We've asked Kate Middleton and the family, and they're happy with it. We want to run a centre page spread with the images of Kate Middleton as a bridesmaid. Have you got it? It was in the days of film. Yeah. When they had moved house some years earlier, his wife said, we won't need these negatives, let's throw them away. He said, that's my life's work, keep them. They put them in the loft. He earned more money from a 3 or 4 page spread of Kate Middleton as a bridesmaid than he did for the actual wedding that he shot. And that's because he had the negatives in the loft and when they got engaged. Okay, so always keep your photos. I haven't got any of those that I took when I was a youngster, sadly. I ditched them many years ago. Okay, so what I'm going to show you now is something in using Lightroom, and then I use noiseless, and I use sharpen, again, deliberately so. So let us just run this video here. I'm just going to pin mine so I can see what's going on. So this is in Lightroom. This is what Paul was talking about. And this is something called merge. There's no other software that does this. Luminar doesn't do it. So I've taken 3 shots so that I'm not pointing up and foreshortening. I go into Lightroom. This is down in Docklands. I take those. I go photo merge, panorama. This is in real time. And basically it is then, it knows whether it's upright or portrait or landscape. We've got a bit of edging there. See that white? It hasn't quite filled. You just literally clip, fill the edge, and it can do quite a large edge here. There we are. The white has gone. Okay, we've now got the image. I then press merge. Merge the images here. It's just 3. You can have 5 images. I sometimes do 5, whatever. And this was shot with what's called a tilt shift lens. So it moves up the building. You would have to go click, move, move, move like that. And then basically, there we go. It's now merged the image. Okay, that's the final, the image. Then I go down here to transform, and you've got some things here. You can actually tilt images and so on in Lightroom. This is one of the best things about Lightroom that I use all the time on my architectural photography. But I've gone, okay, let's straighten it. And it's taken away all of the foreshortening. There's the grid. You can see the rule of thirds coming up there as a guide. I then move it in because I want this as a portrait image. Okay, move it up slightly. There's a rule of thirds intersection there, a point of interest. And there we go. There is the image. And it's not foreshortened. This is quickly done. The actual original is better than this. Okay, but what's happened here is I'm using a tilt shift lens and I'm using manual focus. My eyesight isn't quite what it was. I have some other ones which were in focus, but for the sake of this, I'm going to exit this. I save it. You choose it, type in a name. Again, put it in a folder where you know where it's going to be and so on. Use your own filing system. I go save. Okay. That's going to save. I close that. I did these the other day, so you'll forgive me if I don't know. And then I'm going to go into Sharpen. This is Topaz Sharpen, one of the best tools there is for sharpening things as well. It's better than Lightroom, better than Photoshop, better than Luminar. It's the best there is, called Topaz Sharpen. So I'm going to, I should have done this slightly bigger. I'm going to drag across that image I've just created in Lightshot. It's easy as that to open it. It's opened it. I should have done it bigger, forgive me. And basically you then have several tools here. You've got literally sharpen the image. This is similar to Gigapixel because it's designed by Topaz. You've got stabilize. So if you've got a bit of camera shake, it does an amazing job. Photoshop have a stabilize filter. It's not as good as this AI. It really isn't, nowhere near as good. Focus, if it's not quite in focus, you can do that as well. This was more or less in focus. Again, you can't really see the split line because it's a light line against a light building. And you can change the size, magnify it, and all the rest of it, 100% size and so on. But I'm just going to go, let's just sharpen this up, just a small amount. Okay. I've sped this up. And then that's basically sharpened that building. Then I go save image. I'm going to suppress the noise slightly. You can move the sharpness however you want. You can move it across different parts of the picture using that window there. We're still on the line going down the building. So you can move around the building however much you want. It's very easy to use. It's so intuitive. Move the before and after line. All of this software has that. Adobe doesn't. Well, it does in a way. It does in a way. It does in a way in Lightroom. Then I save that image. Again, you save it where you want to in your right folder. You could do custom or whatever. That should save. Yeah, there we go. Now with Sharpen, you do have to go and have a pint or two or a large gin whilst it does this, because it's literally redrawing the pixels on the image. Okay, so I'll sped this up. It really does. It's like watching paint dry. You can see the counter going across up there. I'm going to speed it up even a bit more. Okay, going to go to there. Okay, so I'm going into Skylum Noiseless again. It's opened the previous picture. Literally just go File, Open, find where you've put the file. For the sake of this, I'll put it on the desktop. And there it is. It gives the name Sharpen. I don't want to save that current picture. And then basically we're going into Noiseless. Now, this isn't taking away noise as such. What I found this, why I like it, it just makes an image pop a bit more, especially architectural. And most of my architectural imagery will go through here. So if I put that on medium, I don't know whether you can see it, but you can close up. That image now, you probably can't see that, to be honest with you, is just popping so much more than the original. I'm even going to move it up. You can do this on buildings and so on. And basically that is just so much clearer. When I was looking at the screen, I use a big screen as well. I'd advise you to use, I'm going to even go up to strong on this. You may be able to just about see the difference somewhere between those struts on the building. And then we literally just save it and save as. Sorry, we don't save as. If you save as, you save it as a Skylum file. What you need to do, you need to go File, and then you go Export to Image, which is down there. And then you save it as a JPEG. And again, you can change the quality of the JPEG and all the rest of it. Okay. I've taken out the word sharpen there, and I just give it a name at the top there, Tower 2 or whatever, Tower Finished. Remember to put it in the right folder. You just save it. This is real-time saving. It's not too bad noiseless, basically, but I will speed it up slightly for the sake of this demonstration.
Is JPEG the best format to save to in terms of quality?
Very, very good point. I'm going to go into that in a second. I'll answer that point. That is a very, very good point. It depends what you're doing with it. And I'm not being awkward. You ask a photographer a question, I'm going to be brief. If you are wanting to make something suitable for printed literature, your smartphone will still, even if you enlarge it, will still only be 72 dots per inch or pixels per inch. And it needs to be a minimum of 300 for print, really, ideally. But then it does depend how big you're going to print it. With Gigapixel, you can zoom it up and then zoom it down and so on. The only real way of improving a pixelation of 72 to 300 is you can do it within Photoshop, but there's a limited way of doing it. But for print-ready artwork, people will want a high-resolution 300 JPEG or a print-ready PDF, Adobe PDF, to print. Or a graphic designer will want a 300 image, and so on. If you're using it for a website, then basically it used to be, or social media, change the image into what's called a .png format. Because then if you put JPEGs on a website or social media and it's a graduated color, you don't so much now, but you could get banding of colors across the image if you're seeing it electronically and digitally. However, now they've improved on that and you don't see that as much. And also, if you put a .png on Facebook, for example, they will automatically change it to a JPEG. You actually now can't put PNG files on there. Furthermore, when you put images on social media, they will compress it to their own format. So therefore, Facebook is pretty good, but not only that, they changed the color tone. And if you put images on LinkedIn, it's the worst one. On LinkedIn, they changed the tone unless you're saving it correctly. Adobe RGB, I think it has to be.
Yeah.
And so basically you have to know a bit about, if you're doing a LinkedIn banner, a LinkedIn profile picture, you have to save it in the right format, such as JPEG, but the color profile as well, okay? Because they will distort it and it goes all pale and yellowy and horrible on LinkedIn, LinkedIn in particular. Twitter's good. Furthermore, I will send a site, I think it is, but basically there is a site you can go onto, which I found a few weeks ago, which gives the sizes that you size an image for profile pictures, banners, everything, Instagram stories, Instagram videos, etc. You size everything according to this template, and that, because some of them have to be square. So for instance, if you put a landscape picture or a portrait picture, rectangle, on Instagram, you won't see it all on Instagram. You actually need to square your picture before you post it on social media. I forget what it is. It's about 920 square, I think it is, off the top of my head. But I'll get the emails off people or put it on my YouTube channel. And you can go on that site and then you can actually, and then there is a site as well where you can put images in there and it will do the work for you. You say, I want this image for Facebook, and it will size it according to Facebook. You don't have to do it in Photoshop. I'll look up that site as well. I created my own templates for clients because they say, I want this on LinkedIn, want this on Facebook or whatever. So JPEG is the best one for print and social media these days. However, on your website, you need to save it in a format called JPEG 2000 is probably the best one, because that's what's called next-gen compatible. Google will bring a rating in ranking according to your website page, according to the speed that your page loads. It's a minor part of the ranking, nevertheless, it is part of the ranking. and they do something of a speed test on your website. You can do it yourself, Google page speed test. You type in your URL, it will give you a score on the page. You're aiming for 65 and above. My website's being redesigned at the moment. Mine is not there, it will be. And basically, one of the main things is images. And if you make it what's called, NextGen is a gallery plugin for WordPress websites, and it's now the industry standard. And if you save things as JPEG 2000, that is NextGen compatible, and it's compressed. It's lossless compressed. And that will reduce the size of your image for a website. Okay? But social media, it's JPEG, yes, all the way these days. Never used to be, but it is now. Does that help? I know it's a long answer to a short question. I don't know who asked the question, actually.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Right. Coming towards an end. I'm going to show you one more video, which is why I say I use Photoshop. And I say Photoshop is a Ferrari. A client came to me. They wanted a stock image they'd found to reflect something to do with mental health for a blog during the COVID crisis. And this is a very speeded up thing where we started off with an image, but it had several things wrong. It had a, on the ladies, when I started making it melancholic, it started with a really white patch on the right cheek. Hair was down the cheek. The arm, the laptop went across the arm. The sleeve of the arm was underneath the laptop. I made that dark and less into shadow. The laptop itself needed cleaning up. There are lots of things. I'm going to speed up in 4 minutes here of what I did. And this is going to show you Photoshop. So here's the image. And I'm creating layers, and this is showing you what Photoshop can do if you do want to get into it. So I've made it melancholic, and basically there was that white light on the cheek. And I can't use what's called RAW because it's a downloaded image from a site called Unsplash. If you want to get royalty-free images of high quality, go to Unsplash. You have to credit the photographers though. But it's all free of charge, royalty free. So what I'm doing now is I'm drawing a mask around the body of the girl, which takes quite a long time sometimes in Facebook, and getting the edges right and all the rest of it. And I've already created some layers down there. This is now I'm working on a black and white layer. I'm drawing around it. And basically, I'm then going to create another layer. And I'm adjusting the tones now, and I'm going to make it more blue, but I'm making not her bluer, I'm making the sofa bluer, etc. Okay, so I've drawn, now I'm drawing around again. I forget what I did here, but I wanted to do more. Oh, I know what I'm doing here. The trousers and underneath there, this is a sleeve on the laptop here, underneath, you can't quite see it. But I actually want to enhance something. I think it's the trousers and underneath there. Anyway, I'm doing various things. I can't quite remember what I'm doing. Okay, I'm changing okay, that's what I'm doing. I'm changing the intensity of the blue there. It's a percentage. Now I'm in a black and white. And what I'm now doing is zooming in there, and I'm drawing a lasso around a bit. There's a bit of detritus and I want to take out, there's some spots there on the sofa you may be able to see. I want to take those out, and here's some more spots, And I'm cutting out pieces there to cover them up because the actual cloning wouldn't work. So spots on the sofa, spots underneath there, cutting it out. Again, dragging a piece over, take out the spots. And this is layer by layer by layer. I'm copying that bit of the laptop further down the laptop because it's gone wrong there when I did stuff with it. And then there's this sleeve here. You can see that white sleeve hanging down. It just looks odd. So I just copied a piece, took it up there, placed it up there just to take it out. It's distracting. But then the laptop's gone wrong, and I need to recreate an edge of that laptop if somebody zooms in on the picture. I'm just smoothing down the whole area there, and then you can't recognize that anything's been there. The dots, the sleeve, anything like that. That edge needed enhancing slightly. Again, you could see it. I'm very particular on this sort of thing. Okay, so that's there. Now this on the face here, there's some hair overhanging the face and things like this. Those strands of, oh, I'm doing the eyes first. I could have gone into Luminar and do this. I just want to bring in a bit of white. This is what you have to do here into the eyes. Again, it's just a touch. It's got to be not so obvious, and taking out a few shadows under the eyes which stood out too much. Again, there, taking out some of the eyes and shadows. You can't see it there, but if you saw the original and the after. Now I'm going to move on to the other eye, create a layer, whiten that, but again, not too much. Merge it in, rub it out, and so there's just that bit of white there on that eye. Okay, and that's what I did on that photo. And that is the sort of thing I'll use Photoshop for. I also do some fine artwork, which I sell. And for that, there is no other software but Photoshop that will actually do the job for me as fine artwork. I've given a lot of information. It was determined to give you an overview of what's possible and what is accessible. But in an hour or so, I can't possibly go into the whole of photography and tell you what there is and what you can do and so on. But I hope I'm showing you, especially with the likes of Luminar, showing you that if you've got dots in a picture, blemishes on a skin, reflections in glass, you can take them out by click, 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 erase, done. Okay, right. In closing then, here's a competition for everyone. Can anyone do that? Let me change cameras. Can anyone do that? Yeah, because my sign-off, my full sign-off at networking is live long and prosper. May the force be with you on your quest, because it's probably a mission from God, but hey, be careful out there. And you can meditate on that and think how many films and TV shows I got into that sign-off. Okay, thank you very much. This has been the Time Lord. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for your patience. And I will catch you again sometime. Thank you very much. I'm going to end the meeting.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank
See
you.
you later.
Bye.
Have a good afternoon. Bye.
Bye.